Hello and welcome to my video. I am an OTP Kayle player with over 3000 games on Kayle support on US server. I play across different ranks from Bronze to Emerald, and this is my guide for Kayle support, aka the strongest support in the game. So, let's start with a simple question: why play Kayle support? There's a common misconception that Kayle is a weak early game champion. In my opinion, she's actually one of the strongest early game champs, but when she's played top or mid, her potential cannot be fully unleashed because she has to farm, and her farm is... Her auto attack damage is really low, you always have to use your Q and need to last hit minions, and your W to basically run away after taking CS, because no matter who you play into, they will bully you for farming. Support is the only role in game where you don't have to farm, and that makes Kayle insanely strong in early.
They shall tremble at my perfection.
Another misconception is that Kayle is a scaling late game champion. That's only partially true. Yeah, her passive scales with level, but she actually is played more like a snowball champion rather than a scaling champion. So if you start playing Kayle support, you'll quickly see that she's more of a Draven rather than a Smolder.
Oh, next time!
Kayle also gets easily countered when played top or mid. There are just too many frustrating matchups. Plus, since she's a ranged top laner, you basically force your team to pick a tank somewhere else. Kayle can't provide that kind of front line most top laners bring, especially since you need to focus on farming. Sometimes you can straight up ruin your team's draft by just locking Kayle top. On support though, Kayle becomes a secondary tank and a healer, which makes her way more useful and flexible for the team. And the cool part is, Kayle is a strong early pick and draft. Most people will assume it's a Kayle top and will try to counter her there, and that will allow your top laner to counter pick instead. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people pick Malphite top thinking they're laning into Kayle, and then they basically get a Silas into their face. Pain. You get the idea. Trust me, this happened a lot. So, picking Kayle support early can give your team a strong drafting advantage. And the most disgusting part, Kayle counters tons of supports and only gets countered by a few. Take Lulu for example. Kayle's kit is really similar, their Qs are almost identical, her R is just like Lulu's R but way stronger, and her W is basically Lulu's W and E when cast on an ally. So if you see a Lulu on the enemy team, just lock Kayle. You win hard. And the cherry on top, you actually counter most of Kayle's top lane counters when you play her on support, just because your positioning as support is different.
I will not bend.
Let's for example take once again Kayle's infamous counter Malphite. Why does he counter her? Because when he has access to his R, he can just ult you and instantly kill you, so you won't have time to react, cast your flash, cast your R or whatever. But on support, you have access to a glorious item, Celestial Position, which basically makes Malphite ult on you useless. Hurt. League players have an instinct to focus Kayle, but on support you are not supposed to be focused. And since Kayle has a lot of defense tools, it's really hard to kill her without using crucial abilities, which will allow you or your teammate, in case you die, to punish the bastard who did that.
The unrighteous will burn!
And finally, Kayle has 4 abilities just like every other champion, but when she's played top or mid, the focus is entirely on her E because autos are her only consistent damage source. On support, you get to use her entire kit. You have way more freedom in how you build her, and you get to play around all of her abilities, not just auto damage. Which brings us to the next part of the video. Let's take a quick overview of her abilities. Alright, so let's start with Kayle's passive, Divine Ascent. Kayle ascends throughout the game by spending skill points at level 1, 6, 11 and 16. At level 1, she unlocks her auto attack stacks. When she uses her autos, she gains a stack up to 5 times. Each stack gives her bonus attack speed, and at max stacks, she becomes exalted, gaining 10% bonus move speed. At level 6, Kayle becomes ranged. At level 11, she slightly grows in size, and at max stacks, her autos start launching waves, and her E becomes an area of effect ability. It hits all surrounding enemies and apply on-hit effects. And finally, at level 16, she gains even more bonus range and no longer needs to stack. She becomes permanently exalted with the full movement and attack speed bonuses from 5 stacks. We'll come back to her passive later when we talk about gameplay, but for now just remember, as support, the most useful part of your passive is the move speed, because ideally you should always try to stay at 5 stacks. Actually, it's not that hard to do. So her stacks last for 5 seconds and your E counts as an auto attack. So it refreshes your passive. What you would want to do is you want to use your E on enemy champions and sneak in a single auto attack in between casts. In early game, you can just walk to the enemy champion and use your melee auto attack on them. Or if you are too scared to do so, you can proc your support item on a minion. Or if you don't want to proc it this way, you can just hit one minion with high HP. In early game, you will most likely only have 1 point in your E and your autos don't do much damage, so it wouldn't affect much the wave management your ADC is building. To keep your stacks, you should use one auto attack every 10 seconds and use your E every time its cooldown is up. Not that hard. When you're fully stacked, you can easily trade and you'll have a huge mobility bonus, so you become a big threat in lane. You become some sort of a mini Blood Frenzy Briar. You are ready to go all in at any moment. Because in the end, Kayle support is an all-in champion. She rewards your team's engages while punishing the enemies for trying to do the same. Kayle's Q ability, Radiant Blast. Kayle launches a projectile that explodes on contact with an enemy, forming a cross-like shape. Everyone hit gets slowed and loses armor and magic resist. When you level up this ability, you increase the slow and damage, but the armor reduction stays the same, no matter how many points you put into it. Her Q is a great anti-engage tool. It's kind of like Janus Tornado, and it's really good for proccing items like Stoltai Stay, or runes like Font of Life, or Chip Shot when combined with one auto attack or an E. Your Q is a really great support ability because it reduces magic resist and armor, so try to use it with some impactful abilities from your ADC, for example Jinx's Force Shot, Caitlyn's Headshot, Jinx's Q, etc. Next we have Kayle's W, Celestial Blessing. Kayle and a targeted ally are healed and gain a move speed bonus for 2 seconds. This is your main support ability, and the one you would want to max first. It is pretty much one of the strongest buffs in the game. By rank 3 it's quite as strong as Summoner Heal, but with much lower cooldown.
I bring the light's wrath.
There are several usages of your W. First of all, it's the most obvious way to proc your support items. Then, when it comes to teamfights, take note that most League of Legends teamfights don't last long, so you'll probably use the spell 2 or 3 times per fight. So, try to use it to either help someone get in, or someone to get out of the fight. Then, when you're out of combat, feel free to spam it. You'll have enough mana regen from your support items to do so, and it's a way to out-sustain your opponent by simply having more health than they do.
On wings of fire, hope ascends.
Another important thing about your W is when you self-cast it or use it without a clear target, it will automatically target the closest ally, champion in range, prioritizing whoever has lowest HP. But be careful, if you use quick cast sets and use a cursor, it will prioritize the champion closest to your cursor, not to Kayle. Next we have Kayle's E, Starfire Spellblade. It enhances your next basic attack with a non-cancelable wind up, which means you can use 2 auto attacks instantly, and the second one Your E auto attack will be enhanced with bonus magic damage based on enemies missing health. If you are not ranged yet, it temporarily gives you range. For this, 1 auto attack. This ability has no mana cost and it synergizes well with Fleet Footwork, Airy, Scorch, Taste of Blood, and Chip Shot. Kayle's R, Divine Intervention. Kayle's ultimate makes her target invulnerable for 2.5 seconds and then deals massive AoE damage around them. You can use this ability on yourself or on your ally. Leveling it up increases the damage, reduces the cooldown, and reduces the mana cost down to 0 at rank 3.
Drown in holy fire!
This ultimate blocks all damage except for the Nexus Obelisk damage, aka Fountain, but it doesn't cleanse CC or stop control effects. Most Kayle guides will say that you should use R to block max damage in a fight, but I strongly disagree. You are a support and you will most likely be building heal and shield powers, so your W might actually be a better tool for mitigating burst damage. Unironically, the most value you get from Kayle's R is by not using it. Let me explain. This ability is very similar to Renata Glask's ultimate. No sane enemy would want to engage your team when they know Kayle's R is up, especially when you position as a support. You're a hard target to access and the enemy will hesitate. Just by having Kayle on your team changes how the enemy play against you. They play more passive, they don't want to engage, and that gives your team time to scale, farm, take objectives, etc. But of course it's not a strict rule. Sometimes you do want to use your ultimate proactively. There are games where you just become the engaged tank simply by existing, you bait the enemy to go all in on you and then you self-ult and watch the enemy team blow their cooldowns while your team punishes them for it.
A few moments later.
There are situations that can make usage of your R pretty simple. Let's say there is a Malzahar on the enemy team. Anytime he presses R, the enemy team would wanna go all in on his R target because it's the nastiest control spell there is in League of Legends, but you just deny all of that with simply pressing your R.
Fear the cleansing fire.
If you build heal and shield power, you can actually save people with your W alone. But if you see the enemy team fully commit, just use your ult and flip the fight. Another situation is when you have an overfight carry on your team, let's say a 10-0 Briar, then you should save your ultimate for them and start following them. Under certain circumstances, those 2.5 seconds of invulnerability combined with your healing and move speed boost can turn games into 2v5s. Now it is time to say an obvious and yet very shocking thing about Kayle. Kayle is an enchanter by champion design.
Shocking.
Her Q is a debuff, her W is a healing ability, and her R is a buff. Basically, her entire kit is support. So let us try to distinguish Kayle's place among other supports. Pretty obviously, Kayle falls in the category of enchanter supports. Healers, to be more specific. Almost all of them are enchanters with a small exception of Nidalee, because Nidalee isn't typically built as an enchanter. I have never seen Nidalee players build enchanter items, even though I think it might be quite playable.
I have no need to be anything else.
Kayle is a support that relies on basic attacks, just like Bard, Orianna, Renata Glask, Lulu, or Senna. She is also a mistake punisher, just like Leona, Blitzcrank, or Renata.
Waste of my time.
Because of the survivability she provides to herself and her teammates, she's a threat simply by existing.
My flames burn only the unworthy.
If you want to win Kayle support, you should avoid her. This sounds counterintuitive because on any other role, Kayle is a champion to be focused first, but support is the role that is not supposed to be prioritized in teamfights. Therefore, almost every fight is a perfect opportunity for you and your teammates to punish enemies for focusing Kayle. You might enjoy Kayle support if you play the following champions: Senna, Renata Glask, Orianna, Lulu, Bard, or Nidalee. Now let's talk about Kayle's support's core mechanic. Kayle is an extremely versatile champion that can fill up lacunas in almost any team composition. Metaphorically, she's a liquid glue that makes your team work well together, because she can perform as a tank, healer, utility champion, or a damage dealer. In most games, you'll play her as a hybrid of tank and healer. Your core mechanic is to change your form or switch places with your ADC. Let me explain how it works. When both you and your ADC are full HP, you just stand in front of the way and zone the enemies. Now it's your turn to tank. It is very important to understand that the enemy botline can't focus you and your ADC at the same time. So your job is to make sure the enemy team focuses you. While it happens, you should watch closely what your ADC does, because they do have several options. They either poke the enemy team or have enough space to farm freely. When you tank enough damage and have done enough trades, you simply get behind your ADC. Now, you transform from being a tank into a support. You're a healer girl now. You use your W combined with healing runes and items to heal up, while your ADC is the one doing the trades. In order to reach you again, the enemy is forced to go through your carry, who most likely has more mana and more health than they do and than you do. While that happened, you are staying safely behind, healing and buffing both you and your ADC. And if your ADC has good mana management, you'll most likely have more total resources than the enemy after a short while in a lane. And then you have to wait for a perfect moment to basically stat check your opponents by going all in on them.
No mercy!
So, let's talk about Kayle's tools for this playstyle. First of all, passive movement speed from 5 stacks allows you to reposition quickly. Then you have your Q, probably enhanced by Salt Ice Slay, which slows enemies and gives move speed to allies. Then you have your W, Celestial Blessing. It's a spammable healing and move speed buff. You have your Summoner Heal, which is basically the same as your W, but sometimes there are situations when you do need to use both. Finally, you have your Flash that allows you instantly either get behind your ADC or get in front of them.
The divine path shows no footsteps.
There are many situations when you have to literally stay on top of your ally, so the enemy's skill shots would hit you and not them, allowing your ally to escape safely.
I cannot rest.
Kayle support provides this form-switching, lane-controlling playstyle, which forces your enemies to make awkward decisions, while you and your ADC take turns in leading, enabling a constant flow of trades and sustain. Being a champion that adapts to different team compositions and situations, there is no single rune tree that's a must-pick for Kayle support. So, I am going to overview all the existing rune options, explain how they interact with Kayle's kit and items, and point out the ones I consider OP and the ones I consider really good. After that, I'll do the same for items, and by the end of these two sections, I'll share some sample rune and item builds. I'm going to start with the Resolve rune path. I usually play Kayle as a hybrid of tank and healer, so it is the most obvious choice and the one I pick in almost 99% of my games. If you decide to go primary Resolve runes, Guardian would be the best option for the keystone here, as it procs your support items and scales with HP and AP. Grasp of the Undying used to be really strong on Kayle, but Riot recently nerfed it hard for ranged champions. Since Kayle's E is considered a ranged auto, you won't be able to proc it efficiently in early game, so Grasp is basically a no-go. The same goes for Aftershock. It is more of an engage rune, and you can only proc it with using your Q, but in game, you're using this ability mostly for gaining distance, so Aftershock doesn't fit well with Kayle. The most obvious pick for secondary is Font of Life. You proc this rune by using your Q, which synergizes well with Ardent Sensor, Staff of Flowing Waters, and Echoes of Helia, basically all your core support items. Other options include Demolish, but I don't think it's quite useful because it's not your job to push the turrets, and Shield Bash. Shield Bash is generally bad on Kayle because the only shields you can get are from Guardian or Locket of the Iron Solari. The choice between Second Wind, Bond Plating, and Conditioning is very important. Second Wind is my go-to and almost a must on Kayle. You'll be tanking damage a lot, and this rune gives great healing and survivability. It also works very well with items like Road of Ages and tanky support items. Bond Plating is situational. For example, you're playing against Jhin and Leona, or against Rengar or Kiana in jungle or mid. But if the enemy team has poke champions, Bond Plating is a no. Conditioning is decent, but only if you're the only tank on your team and you'll be stuck in armor. But honestly, in that case, Second Wind is just as good or even better. For the last rune slot in Resolve, I usually go for Revitalize. It is my favorite, and I go for it in about 99% of my games. It is basically a free support item and it works really well with other runes such as Guardian, Second Wind, Fleet Footwork, Triumph, Taste of Blood, Airy, and Biscuit Delivery. It also synergizes well with your W heal and almost every enchanter item, making it a must-have. Overgrowth and Unflinching are situational alternatives depending on your matchups. If you go Resolve as your secondary tree, I usually 100% go for Revitalize and then I decide if I want to go Font of Life or Second Wind. And now, to sum this up, I would like to put Second Wind and Revitalize into the OP category, with Guardian and Font of Life being really good options. My second favorite tree is Domination, which provides strong sustain and damage options. I usually go for Taste of Blood or Cheap Shot. Taste of Blood is really good for trading with your E, and Cheap Shot can work really well if your team has a lot of control. For example, if you're playing with an Ashe ADC. All the Hunter runes are also very solid. I prefer Relentless for better roaming, but Ultimate Hunter might be good against certain enemies, for example Malzahar, Warwick or Kindred, and Treasure Hunter is generally great as well. I don't usually pick Domination as my primary rune path, but there are situations when you need some extra vision. For example, you're playing against Fiddlesticks, then you can go Domination primary with Resolve secondary. For the Keystone rune, you can go Dark Harvest for more damage, Kayle of Blades if you have a good target to proc it on, or Electrocute, which is my least favorite amongst three of them because Kayle needs to put a lot of effort to proc it. So out of all Domination runes, I would like to put Relentless Hunter and Cheap Shot as some very good options. Now let's talk about Sorcery Path. Summon Airy is quite nice because your abilities affect both your enemies and your allies. Arcane Comet is quite well for some extra damage, and Phase Rush is very situational and I almost never pick it. For the first slot we have Axiom Arcanist, Mana Flow Band, or Nimbus Cloak. I almost never go Mana Flow Band because with Enchanter support items, you will have mana regen, so you basically don't need extra mana. Axiom Arcanist is a nice option, but Nimbus Cloak is my favorite out of three of them because it provides you with some extra survivability. I almost never play Sorcery as my main path, so I usually skip runes from this row. Next we have Transcendence, Celerity, and Absolute Focus. Building ability haste with Transcendence is a good idea for a support, but my personal favorite is Celerity, because you have move speed bonus on your passive and your W, and Celerity enhances all the move speed bonuses. I don't think Absolute Focus works well on Kayle support, because in my vision you have to take a lot of damage and you probably won't stay on high HP. Scorch is really well for some early game lane pressure. Water Walking is good for roaming. I usually take it when I need to out-roam the enemy support, if it's a Pyke or a Janna for example. And if I can tell from the draft stage that the game is gonna last long, I would prefer going for Geyser Storm. I would like to mark Gathering Storm and Scorch as very good runes and Celerity as an OP one. Now let's talk about Inspiration Tree for a little bit. I think Jack of all trades is an overpowered rune for Kayle support. You can stack it pretty easily with your base support item, Ardent Sensor, Merc Boots, and Locket of Iron Solari. As for other runes, I prefer Magical Footwear and Biscuit Delivery. There is also a really nasty strategy with Magical Footwear and Jack of all trades, but I'm gonna talk about it a little bit later. And if you wanna have an Inspiration Keystone rune, both First Strike and Spellbook are fairly decent options. So the last tree remaining is Precision Tree. The keystones that I prefer are Press the Attack and Fleet Footwork. Press the Attack is overall good, but I think it has the same problem as Electrocute. It's not very convenient to proc it with Kayle. And Lethal Tempo is a fairly decent option if there is an enemy champion that will allow you to stack it on them. Let's say a fat support tank. As for the other runes from this tree, I prefer going Triumph because Absorb Life is obviously not for you because you don't get to kill minions. Presence of Mind isn't necessary with your support items. For the Legend runes, I pick between Alacrity and Haste, and runes from the third row are subject to your matchup or your personal preferences. As for the shards, I prefer going Ability Haste, Movement Speed, and Tenacity, but feel free to pick others based on your personal preferences or your matchup. To build successfully, you have to understand which stats Kayle scales with and build the most optimal items for your team, as well as counter enemy's team with your build. The stats Kayle most benefits from are obviously AP, because every Kayle's ability has a good AP scaling. AD for the same reason, but since most support items are AP based, you should only build AD when you're the only one scaling with it on your team. Move speed is very good on Kayle, since she has move speed in her W and her passive, and heal and shield power since Kayle is a healer. Ability haste is a good stat because as a support, you are rather focused on Kayle's abilities than on her auto attacks. Therefore, even though Kayle benefits from attack speed, most likely you won't be building any on her. And of course, mana regen as a unique stat for support is very good for Kayle. Now let's talk about health for a moment. Even though Kayle doesn't directly scale with health, most support items provide it, and the more health you have, the tankier you are. I think Kayle can be played with all 5 options, so let me do a quick overview, listing them from my most to my least favorite. Top 1 for me is Salt Ice Slate, because both you and your ally benefit from it. It is kinda better version of Font of Life, but take care since this item doesn't proc your support items. Then we have the Bubble Maker. It is also very good on Kayle, especially if you need to provide your carry with as many resources as possible, but Kayle herself doesn't benefit from it. Celestial Opposition might be very useful in some situations. The most obvious one when there is an invisible one-shot champion on the enemy team, or a Malphite. If you wanna take it, make sure there are no poke champions on the enemy team that can easily deny it. You can also use it to proc your Font of Life. Overall, I think it is as great for Kayle as the Bubble Maker.
The greater the evil, the greater its opposition.
The other two for me are quite situational and overall not so great. You already can shred armor with your Q, so taking Bloodsong doesn't make much sense for me. While Zigzag can be used for some extra damage, but generally it's not your job to do the damage. There are tons of other supports that specialize on doing that, while Kayle is rather a utility enchanted support. I hope you figured out by now that there is one support item that's beyond OP on Kayle. Let me introduce you to the Ardent Sensor. This item gives you AP, heal and shield power, move speed, and mana regeneration. It also has a passive that gives you and the ally you heal a shield, an attack speed buff, and some magical on-hit damage. I can't think of any other item that is that OP for Kayle because basically it mimics Kayle's mechanics and she benefits from all stats on this item.
My sword is named Virtue, and it burns eternal.
It is quite common to think that Kayle's best power spike is when she gets Nashor's Tooth, but in fact, Ardent Sensor gives her way more value than Nashor's. So, with this item, your main goal is to always have it procced. To do so, you need always to have an ally nearby, and then you proc it by using your W, and when it's on cooldown, your Q enhanced by Font of Life or Guardian will do the job. You can buy some more items like Moonstone Renewer to apply it to 2 allies, Locket of the Iron Solari to apply it to all allies in range, or use Creep Bloom to proc it via the Healing Nova. Redemption is also a nice option. So, if we do a tier list of Kayle's items, it will immediately put Ardent Sensor to the S tier, while the other 3 will go to A tier. I personally dislike Redemption because it doesn't provide any AP and there is a delay before the healing effect, so for an area Ardent Sensor proc, I prefer using the Locket, but Redemption is an okay item for Kayle, so I'd put it to the B tier. Next we have Staff of the Flowing Waters. Even though it seems like an OP version of Ardent Sensor, I don't find it quite useful. Probably it is because it doesn't have a move speed bonus, and the bonus AP instead of attack speed and on-hit effect isn't that great. A solid B. Next we have the Moonstone's twin item, Echoes of Helia. Overall, I think it's a really great item for Kayle if you build a lot of small healing, aka Font of Life, Guardian, Creep Bloom, or Locket. Dawn Core is a great finisher item if you go full enchanter build. A tier. Anti-heal. Who else would build it if not you? If there are healing champions on the enemy team, I usually buy the orb around level 11 so I can use my waves and AoE damage from E to apply it. If you play into a heavy healer on bot lane such as Soraka, you can build it even sooner. Take note, you're only gonna need the orb for the anti-healing. Don't upgrade it to Morellonomicon unless you're fully built. Buying orb and completing one support item will always have more value than Morellonomicon. Watchful Wardstone works really well as the last item on Kayle, but you're only gonna need it in 1% of your games. It is very situational, as well as Mikhail's Blessing. There is only one situation when I buy this item, and I buy this item first, when there is a Lilia on the enemy team. You will always have enough time to deny Lilia's ult, and of course you can also buy it into some other cringe CC champions, but if you play any support and you see Lilia on the enemy team, you buy this item and you basically win the game.
Not good. Not good.
King's Vow. I buy it if I need to be a tank, it works well with a Neela or Samira on your team,
Joy in all things.
but overall it's not a great choice. Imperial Mandate. In theory, you can use it if you hit your Q often, but overall I think it's just bad for Kayle. Shurelia's Battle Song is bad as well, you simply don't need it because your W already gives move speed. Trailblazer is bad as well because you're only melee before level 6 and you won't be able to use its passive. That's it for the support items, and now let's talk about mage items that I find good for Kayle. The OP one in my opinion is Rod of Ages, since it enhances your tanking playstyle and synergizes extremely well with Second Wind and Revitalize. I'm a huge Rod of Ages fan, and usually I buy the mini rod early in game to upgrade it to full item at approximately minute 18 to 22 of the game, so I can get my level 15 and level 16 at the same time. Take note, you have to kinda predict if your game is going to last long to play Rod of Ages and make this strategy work. Later on, when you're level 16, you can sell it and get Realize Scepter, which in my opinion has also incredible value on Kayle after level 16. There is also a secret technique with this item and inspiration runes. You go Magical Footwear and Jack of all trades. You build Ardent Sensor first, then you don't upgrade your boots and build Rod of Ages. In that case, you're almost guaranteed to get level 15 and level 16 at the same time. Banshee's Veil or Zhonya's. I buy these items in late game if I need some magic resist or armor. Both of them work very well. Lichbane is also a good late game option for Kayle. In late game, I prefer to sell my Ardent Sensor to get Lichbane. Nashor's Tooth. Well, overall, it's a good item for Kayle top or Kayle mid, but it simply doesn't work on Kayle support efficiently. You can still get it, but I think Lichbane works way better.
I took up my mother's sword, and with it, her purpose.
That's it for the mage items. If the item wasn't mentioned, I don't think it's good. Let's talk a bit about items that doesn't give any AP. There are situations when you need to build other stats. For example, if there are no auto attackers on your team, you can always go Blade of the Ruined King or Rage Blade. Frozen Heart is also good if you are the only tank and need some extra armor. Same goes for the Iceborne Gauntlet. With End, if the enemy team is heavy control mage composition, there is an item called Umbral Glaive, which is in my opinion is just a meh item, but it deserves its spot in the tier list. And the last one I'd like to cover is Experimental Hexblade. Even though games when you need to buy it are very rare, it works surprisingly well on Kayle support. And that's it for the items. Once again, if the item wasn't mentioned, I don't think it's useful on Kayle support, feel free to argue with me in the comments. Now the tier list is complete, and let's move to the next section and craft some potential builds. The first build I would like to cover is your Traveling Enchanter build. You go Guardian, Font of Life, Second Wind, Revitalize, and for secondary you go Relentless Hunter and Chip Shot or Taste of Blood, depending on the situation. The first item you build is Ardent Sensor, then you go for Swift Boots, then Moonstone Renewer to apply your Ardent Sensor to 2 targets, then Echoes of Helia, and you can finish your build with Crypt Bloom. Now let's play around Jack of all trades. You go First Strike, Magical Footwear, Biscuit Delivery, and Jack of all trades. For secondaries, you go Revitalize and Font of Life or Second Wind. You build Ardent Sensor first, then you go Rod of Ages, then you build Mercs, then you go Locket of the Iron Salari, and you can finish your build with Crypt Bloom as well. Or it can be some other item like, I don't know, Dawn Core for example. Or Anti-Heal if it's needed. I use next build for the games when I don't feel confident enough that I'm going to win. I go Fleet Footwork, Triumph, Alacrity, Cut Down, Revitalize and Second Wind and my secondaries. As for the items, I go Ardent Sensor, Swift Boots, Locket of the Iron Salari, Anti-Heal, and finish the build with either Moonstone Renewer or Crypt Bloom. There are a lot of champions in this game. I would like to talk about the most OP ones to play with Kayle support and the hardest counters I've played against. I don't want to cover a lot of champions because I think it deserves a special series. So, let's start with the ADC champions. There are 2 champions that are extremely broken with Kayle, Nilah and Kalista. Nilah is overpowered because of her passive and because she's an all-in champion. In case you don't know, Nilah enhances any healing close to her and gives some extra experience to her support, which is just perfect for Kayle. When you play with Nilah, the best strategy is to play safe until you build Ardent Sensor and Nilah builds her Collector.
Prepare yourself. Joy will not falter.
When you hit your first items, you can just always go all in and you will be unstoppable.
When you flow as water, nothing can harm you.
Kalista works really great with Kayle because of her W interaction with Kayle's E. Max health % damage from Kalista combined with Kayle's E missing health damage is really nasty. It allows you to basically one-shot people level 2. There ultimate interaction is also really great. If Kalista tanks, Kayle ults her. If Kayle tanks, Kalista can pull her out to safety.
We act as 1, 2, 3. Cease this!
Some other bot lane champions that work really well with Kayle are Xayah, because you can time your ults pretty well,
I can never resist an invitation to dance.
Lucian, because basically it's a better version of Lucian and Nami, and Kayle always counters Nami.
Not too many problems a shot to the head can't fix.
Same goes for Smolder. Smolder and Kayle is a better version of a Janna-Smolder duo.
Well, my mom works for Riot, and she's gonna ban you.
There are two champions that you have to be very careful with because of the way they're coded. Karthus and Kog'Maw. You can easily waste your R on them after they die, especially if it is on quick cast.
You can't kill the metal!
Now for the jungle champions. The strongest in my opinion are Jarvan and Kindred. You have an ultimate interaction with Kindred because basically you have to wait until she ults and then use your ultimate right before the end of hers. This way you can make sure your target survives for some extra time.
They race from us.
Only to find us sooner.
Fun fact, it also works if Kindred is on the enemy team. Jarvan. Kayle really likes Jarvan because his flags gives attack speed, but the main reason they're good on the same team is the way Jarvan's ultimate works.
Demacia!
It only has one flow.
Demacia!
Jarvan locks himself in the crater he creates, so he has to use it very carefully. But when there is a Kayle on your team, he can just leap basically to anyone, including going 1v5, because if Kayle ults him right after his R, the enemy team just can't do anything about it.
Demacia!
Then we have Tryndamere that can be played both in jungle and on top. It is a really great combo because basically you can extend the duration of his ultimate.
This'll be a slaughter.
This interaction is really annoying and it only exists in the game because you don't usually see Tryndamere and Kayle on the same team. But there is another champion that is way worse than Tryndamere and can also be played both in jungle and on top. It is Olaf. Why? Because his R makes him unstoppable, and Kayle's R makes the champion immune to damage. So basically, if you combine your ultimates on Olaf, you would get a completely invulnerable, unstoppable champion for the duration of your ultimate.
Finally, some fun!
This interaction is really cringe, and that's why I love it. I don't think there are many mid lane characters that have such an OP interaction with Kayle as the champions mentioned before, but I'd like to speak of Malzahar as an honorable mention, since his R is one of the strongest control abilities in the game, but it makes him root himself. As Kayle, you can just make sure he doesn't die during his R.
Bow to the void or be consumed by it.
In general, Kayle is easy to play into most support champions. This is because she is capable of outperforming most of them. For example, if there is a Nami on the enemy team, you buy healing items and you out-heal her. If there is a Bard or a Pike, you out-rotate them, etc. There are only two support champions that Kayle struggles to play into, being Soraka and Taric. So I usually ban one of them. In 95% of my games, it is Soraka. And in rare cases, when I see that my team is picking champions that are not capable of killing Taric, like Jhin ADC for example, I ban him. Why Soraka? Her playstyle in lane is overall very similar to Kayle's, but she heals way more, and no matter what, her ultimate is global and basically is a money printing machine, which is very unfortunate for Kayle. She provides way more utility and will out-enchant her Kayle. So, if you happen to have a Soraka against you, you should never play Enchanter build. When I'm into Soraka, I usually start with anti-heal and boots, and then go for Rod of Ages and a full AP build. Banning her is still a better option. Then we have Taric. The problem with Taric is that he has a very similar kit to Kayle, but instead of a slow, he has an area stun, and his ultimate has a similar effect, but it can be applied to all enemy team at the same time. Apart from this, he is very tanky, and as Kayle, You simply won't have enough poke damage to kill him. All your attempts would just tickle him. Gaming into Tarek is all about dodging his stun and punishing his cooldowns. And when he uses his R, well, if you are 100% sure you can kill him or his carries before he activates it, go for it. But if not, which is almost always the case, you just run away and wait until it's over, pinging your allies to retreat at the meantime. But since it's League of Legends, you'll most likely be witnessing your allies being minced by an invulnerable enemy team. Now let's talk about things you would want to do in mid and late game. Objectives. Every game is different. Sometimes you need to rotate, sometimes you don't. You also have to watch what the enemy support is doing. But there is no general rule. Sometimes, if the enemy support rotates, and you see that your team is capable of securing the objective without you, you just stay in lane and gain some more level. There is only one objective that is crucially important to Kayle: Green Drake. You have to make sure that every time there is a Green Drake up, your team captures it because you scale really well with it. Overall, Kayle's support is a really strong teamfight champion, so you have to be looking for teamfights and try to participate in all of them. If you see an empty lane, for example, your mid laner is rotating or is being dead, you just go to this lane and soak the experience. You wouldn't want to ruin wave management your teammate is building, but if you can last hit minions at the very last moment, just do it. I see no reason for this gold to be wasted. When the laning phase is over, if you see an ally struggling on mid or top lane, and if you see them dying 5 times without scoring any kills, you can go to their lane to basically babysit them. You will be performing the same strategy you're doing with your bot laner. If you pay attention to the background video, at 1330 I came to my set who is 0-5 and 2 levels down. I came just to make sure that he doesn't go 0-6. The rest of my team is doing pretty great, so I'm not worried if I'm gonna leave Caitlyn alone because she would benefit from getting experience solo. Now, with me present on top lane, Seth just can't die, and look, we even managed to score a kill. For the next 5 minutes, I mostly stayed with Seth just to make sure he gets back in the game. And after these 5 minutes, I joined a teamfight that won us the game. So let's watch. So look closely what I'm doing here. I see our mid laner focusing the enemy ADC. It is a very important thing to do, so I help him. At the meantime, I keep my eyes on Viego because he's performing a quite dangerous dragon steal. I use my Q on Merzahar's target, and it procs Ardent Sensor for Caitlyn, so she has more value in this teamfight. I'm moving towards Viego to use my ultimate on him because he is in a very bad position right now. I use my ultimate on Viego and move towards the enemies so I would tank because I'm full HP. As my ultimate's duration is approaching to its end, I use Locket of Iron Solari to once again enhance everyone with Ardent Sensor and provide some extra survivability. My Guardian also procs on Viego, and I use my W to heal him up. And basically, after this teamfight, we group as 5 and go finish the game. As you can see from this game, there is no other champion in the game who could have saved Viego in this situation. To sum this section up, I would like to say that Kayle is a decision-making support. Pay attention to what's happening in your game and make sure you are always at the right place and time. Hello, and thanks for watching my guide. It is over. I really wanted to make this video less than 1 hour long. I think I nailed it. there are still some things that I would like to correct and speak about. First of all, I made a little mistake when I was talking about Kayle's W, and I'm just too lazy to edit it out. On very rare occasions, Kayle's W would misbehave. When you self-cast it, it wouldn't heal the closest or the most injured ally, it would just heal some random ally. I thought it was because of this setting, but after watching the video, I checked and the setting only affects auto attacks, so it might be a bug. Speaking of bugs, I noticed while I was editing the guide, I noticed that there is one video where you can witness Kayle's support item bug when it would execute minions with no allied champions around. So if you enjoyed Find Wally books as much as I did when I was a kid, find this moment and leave in the comments below the timestamp when it happened, and you'll get a pretty wonderful reward from me. I will like your comment. Yeah, I know this reward is generous, but actually, you can also leave a question in the same comment. And if you are the first one to find this clip, I will 100% answer your question in the next video, in the comments. Yeah, both in the comments and in the next video as a very cool reward. Next, let me take you to my mirror board. It's my board for this YouTube channel. As you can see, there is a lot of text here. So basically, I was working on this project. I was thinking of doing this video for like 1 year and a half. And for the past 3 weeks, I've been producing it quite extensively. And I struggled a lot with voiceovering. I think I struggled the most with voiceovering actually, because even though these are things I really know well, for some reason I struggle when I use the microphone. When I start speaking to the microphone, my mind just goes blank, and yeah, I had to write everything down. I had to read it. Sometimes I had to improvise, but I spent a lot of time voiceovering this video. And yet there are some moments when my voice sounds really lame, but I'm sorry about it. I'm gonna work on my voice for the upcoming videos, and yeah, it's gonna get better with experience, but it was really hard to do it. It's still very hard. I'm re-recording this part for the first time. Yeah. So, speaking of further content, let's move to the next section of my mirror board. So, I have an idea for another Kayle support show for YouTube. So, in League of Legends, there are more than 150 champions, and each of them might have an interesting interaction with Kayle support. For example, I haven't talked about it in the video because I feel it's a forbidden technique, but your W can actually heal clones. So, if there is a Shaco on your team, a jungle Shaco for example, you can use your W on his R clone. I think it's the funniest thing I've ever done in League of Legends, I'm not gonna lie. Killing Shaco's clone makes the enemy team kill it immediately. They would go all in on it, like every time. So, speaking of the show, I was thinking of creating 1 or 2 twin shows, like the code name is Kayle's Alphabet. So if I'm going to do 2 shows, there's going to be a show called Kayle's Alphabet about how Kayle interacts with a champion on the same team, and Kayle Malphabet, how to counter specific champions as Kayle support. I was thinking of producing around 6 episodes of this show, with each episode covering around 30 champions. I also think it's a very good format of a show for shorts. So, yeah, 1 short, 1 champion. Nice. Next idea that I have is a more detailed, like a deeper look. For this show, I want to use 2 complete games from the beginning to an end, because in the guide, I was using some clips from like the past 2 years that I played Kayle support. But I think you like as a viewer would be interested to see full games. So there are gonna be full games with my comments and some more information, etc. Because the first version of this guide was 4 hours, 15 minutes long, and I managed to cut it down to 1 hour. So apparently, I still have a lot to say about Kayle support. So it got a little bit too dark yesterday, so I had to stop filming. I'm back. Uh, so Mm, I would also want to create some other content. For now, I call it the mystery show. So what I would want to do is I would probably love to create a Renata Glass guide, similar to the one I created for Kayle. Um, Also, I remember me talking that Tariq is a very bad matchup for Kayle, but actually I managed to find a way to counter him, and I play smaller support. I will probably make a video on that as well. What else? Oh yeah. Okay, so I really wanted to do a some videos on League of Legends cinematics. I wanted to do some visual analysis because basically I'm a media theorist. I specialize in visual culture and transmedia projects, and League of Legends is a huge transmedia project. So I have some sort of the I don't know, like a gaze for that sort of visual information, and I think there are like a lot of interesting things to talk about. And finally, I was thinking of creating some sort of a ranked show because, like, usually I log to my League of Legends account with my Facebook, and recently I tried logging in with my email, and I found out that I actually have another League of Legends account. It was like level 28, now it's level 30, so it's like a brand new account. So I was thinking of creating a YouTube show with like ranked something, I don't know, with like some specific advices how to play Kayle support in like iron, bronze, silver, gold, emerald, higher, I don't know, etc. But the thing with that idea is I really wanted to do it for Twitch as well, but for now I can't do streams because basically I'm doing an around the world trip, so I don't always have internet for streaming. I don't even always have decent internet for gaming. Like sometimes I use my personal hotspot on my mobile to play League of Legends. So yeah. And the second thing is, I think that sort of shows are a bit of cliche. But I'll think about it. I really want to stream, but probably I'll go to some place where I can do it. And for now, I have a lot of like other plans for YouTube that I described. So I'm not sure yet, but we shall see. Uh, Next, I would really like to talk about fan art. So if I'm going to create some more content, I would really love to feature some artists. So among League of Legends players, I know there are a lot of really talented artists. And if you happen to have fan art with Kayle on it, obviously, or if you're willing to produce some more fan art, I would be like really honored to spotlight it in my video, to feature it, to feature the art, to feature your nickname, your like whatever credits you give me. I think it could be really nice. So I will be leaving a yeah, I think I will be leaving some sort of like an open call down below. I will also post about it on Reddit a little bit later. And you can submit your work by sending it to my email. It's gonna be somewhere. There are two last things I would like to talk about. First thing is why did I create this YouTube channel? Why do I wanna create some Kayle support content? There are some objective reasons and there are some personal reasons. I'm gonna start with objective reasons. So basically, I wanted to bring more popularity to Kayle support because Kayle is pretty much a support champion, like by champion design. I told about it, but if you think about it, like all of her abilities are support, and so if she is played around her abilities, she is a support champion. She's very similar in that sense to Oriana mid lane or even jungle. So basically, these are support champions that are played on other lanes. So the idea is to make Kayle support more visible in the media field by producing this video by like my genius content plan, my genius PR strategy, etc. I would like, for example, to see Kayle treated as support by statistics websites. Those like tier list websites. I honestly think all of them are bullshit because like every time there is a new page, I see like people going like, oh, this champion is already have like 52% win rate. Why are Riot buffing them? The reason for that, I think the stat websites are complete like bullshit. They're not representative at all, and it is really hard to find some actual representative statistics for Kayle support because she's just not treated as a support by these websites. So it would be a really cool thing. The other thing is the negative perception of Kayle support. Like people might be unhappy about having Kayle support on your team, but like if people know Kayle's abilities, they understand that she belongs in the support spot. So in most of the cases, you just don't have to like say anything, but there are some things when you have to like talk about something in the lobby. So basically, my favorite interaction is when I'm being asked Kayle support. I prefer to reply to it with I don't know, like I watch what the person who typed it picks, and I'm going like Darius top, Oriana mid, or something like that, you know. And if the people are still confused, why is it Kayle support? You like very politely ask them like, do you know Kayle's abilities? And that makes people think about Kayle's abilities, and when they realize that Kayle has like her Q is a support ability, her W is a support ability, and her R is a support ability. So when people think about it a little bit, it's getting better. And then they see you like 3+ million points Kayle, and they're like, okay, it's all fine. But if you don't have a 3+ million mastery points Kayle, I don't know. So about my personal reasons for doing this project, basically, I always was like surrounded by artists because my work involves working with artists. But I never like I was always staying like in the shadow. And I never actually produced anything myself. And I really I wrote like a lot of papers on video art, and I really wanted to produce video art. So basically, this YouTube channel is a way for me to learn how to work with audio, how to learn with video, etc. So basically, it's a win-win situation for me. I'm learning, and yeah, I'm like playing Kayle support is my hobby. So basically, it works really well together. Another thing, I really hope that at some point this channel might bring me some income. It would be really great. So I will be probably leaving some link with donations somewhere here. And if you want to work with me, you can write my email. And also, if you are interested in my artistic project, let me talk a little bit about it. So basically, it's a performative / documentary project. It's a collaborative thing. So for each episode, I would invite an artist, and we will create some video art, some performative. Like there will be a performance, and we'll be documenting it. So the final product will be video art and a documentary about the invited artist and about our experience together. So if you're interested in it and if you want to be a part of it, you can also write to my email. But this project is like a real life thing. So you have to be in one of the European countries for the year 2025, 2026. It is probably France, Spain, Germany, or Hungary. If you want to know more about this project, you can write to my email and we can discuss it together. So, if you have any questions about gameplay, about the guide, write them in the comments. If you have any other questions, suggestions, or whatever, contact me via email. I read my email. I love email. All right. Thanks for watching. I'm out. See you later. Bye bye.